White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki appears to be on the verge of a big career move. The 43-year-old, who initially said she would stay in her position for a year, is reportedly in advanced contract talks to join MSNBC. Axios first broke the news. The one-time political commentator will serve as a host and an on-air expert.
I don't need any reminder that George Stephanopoulos used to work in Bill Clinton's White House. That's how I first met him, on the '92 Clinton campaign, and then later as a top White House official. I interviewed George. I got spun by George. He was a aggressive practitioner of the political arts. Then he tried to leave all that behind him and become an ABC commentator and then an ABC journalist.
NBC News has ousted former RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel just days after hiring her as a paid political analyst. CNN senior media reporter Oliver Darcy is joining us right now. Oliver, what more can you tell us?
That's right, Wolf. The McDaniel mess is over. Her ouster from NBC News coming after an unprecedented on-air rebellion from NBC's top anchors over Ronna McDaniel's role in subverting democracy in 2020. I want to read to you, Wolf, a statement that just went out from NBC Universal News Group Chair Cesar Conde. In the note sent to staffers, he says, "After listening to the legitimate concerns of many of you, I have decided that Ronna McDaniel will not be an NBC News contributor. No organization, particularly a newsroom, can succeed unless it is cohesive and aligned. Over the last few days, it has become clear that this appointment undermines that goal. I want to personally apologize to our team members who felt let down." This comes after, again, a unprecedented, really, on-air revolt from NBC talent.
Let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. So I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this. I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this, because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination. So it is, you know, that's where you begin here. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News? And when we make deals like this, and I've been at this company a long time, you're doing it for access to audience. Sometimes it's access to an individual, and we can have a journalistic ethics debate about that. And I'm willing to have that debate. And if you told me we were hiring her as a technical advisor to the Republican convention, I think that would be certainly defensible. If you told me we're talking to her, but let's see how she does in some interviews and maybe vet her with actual journalists inside the network, see if it's a two-way, what she can bring the network. So I do think, unfortunately, this interview is always going to be looked through the prism of who is she speaking for, right? I think you did everything you could do. You got put into an impossible situation, booking this interview, and then all of a sudden the rugs pull out from under you. You find out she's being paid to show up. It's unfortunate for this program, but I am glad you did the best that you could, and that's why the three of us are on here to try to bolster that editorial independence.
You may have seen some news over the last few days about the hiring of former RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel as an NBC News contributor. And some, mainly in the right-wing ecosystem, have made the comparison to others who have come from government or politics into the media, including me. And that is a comparison I felt like I had to address. I got into public service for the same reason that many people do, to serve the American people. I worked on my first political campaign when I was just 24 years old. When I was 28, I packed my bags, I moved to Chicago to work for Barack Obama. He wanted to make the country a better place, and I wanted to help him. I wanted to work on behalf of the American people, to try to make their lives better. That's why I did campaigns. And a few years later, I would do the same thing for President Biden when I went to work for him in the White House. I was in the room for tough debates, for difficult decisions, for the messy and at times incredibly grueling process of governing. And that experience is something that I'm extremely proud to bring to this table and to this network. And there are many others who have followed a similar path, who I have a great deal of respect for. But here's the thing. That kind of experience only matters and only has value to viewers, all of you, if it is paired with honesty and with good faith. Those qualities are especially important right now at a time when our institutions are under attack and when our democracy is in danger. And our democracy is in danger because of the lies that people like Ronna McDaniel have pushed on this country. To quote Liz Cheney, Ronna facilitated Trump's corrupt fake elector plot and his effort to pressure Michigan officials not to certify the legitimate election outcome. She spread his lies and called January 6th legitimate political discourse. Look, this isn't about Republicans versus Democrats. This isn't about red versus blue. This is about truth versus lies. Service to the country versus service to one man committed to toppling our democratic system. That is the type of experience that Ronna McDaniel brings to the table. And that experience does not get us to a deeper understanding of anything in the public debate.
And us here at the table are, I don't have to tell you this, dire. The show has dedicated itself to a jarring pursuit of the uncomfortable truths about our politics and our political leaders and our justice system and, yes, the media. Today, this network is part of that story. On Friday, NBC News announced it had hired Ronna McDaniel as a paid contributor. By Saturday night, it was reported in the Wall Street Journal that MSNBC President Rashida Jones had separated this network from that decision, indicating that Ronna McDaniel would not appear on our air.
We weren't asked our opinion of the hiring, but if we were, we would have strongly objected to it for several reasons, including, but not limited to, as lawyers might say, Ms. McDaniel's role in Donald Trump's fake elector scheme and her pressuring election officials to not certify election results while Donald Trump was on the phone.
To be clear, we believe NBC News should seek out conservative Republican voices to provide balance in their election coverage. But it should be conservative Republicans, not a person who used her position of power to be an anti-democracy election denier.
Viewers of this platform in particular for at least 8 years have found a home here for conversations around protecting democracy. And what they saw in the hiring of Ronna McDaniel is a decision to bring on board someone who's a liar.
Tim, can you say something about appeasement? Because so much of the subtext of this is seeking to appease an opposing view. I mean, there's this notion that if you appear on opinion television, you'll anger the Trump side, and then, you know, maybe you can't work in the White House unit if Trump wins. There's this instinct to treat him normal and to sort of appease the other political side. But your point is that that's the wrong frame to have around all of our thinking.
Yeah, normalizing him is beyond your power. You're not going to have access to the White House in any kind of normal sense because there won't be a White House in the normal sense. If Trump is in office, we're dealing with somebody who has already said, and we have every reason to believe him, that he's going to persecute his political opponents. He's going to persecute the people he regards as espousing fake news, which is precisely anybody who says what he doesn't want to say. So this is not a normal political situation where you give a little and you get a little. You can give as much as you want to Trump between now and November, but you're not going to get anything back in January 21. And the perverse thing is that if you practice giving things away to Trump now over the next 7 months, all you have done is practice. All you've done is gotten better at appeasing him after January of 25, should he win. So this is like a trial run for NBC and everyone else to say, okay, we're going to practice appeasing a dictator. And then when the dictator comes, we're going to be better at it.
No shame in your illness. Please seek help.
I know I felt very strongly about it. I know you felt very strongly about it. I think everyone from 4 o'clock on, from Nicole all the way to midnight, we all felt very strongly and said so on our respective shows yesterday. And I just have to say, when somebody does the right thing, I feel like it should be acknowledged as publicly as we acknowledged our outrage. And so I know how I feel about it. I am grateful to Caesar for actually making the right decision. I think it was the right decision. But I want to get your take as well.
Oh, well, thank you for asking me about it. I still feel like a little it always feels wrong to talk about things, in the company
Agreed.
as if it's news. And it's just this. It's not the way either you or I are wired. I know, but I will just say that journalists are a fractious bunch. And in our big company with all sorts of different journalistic entities, you have all sorts of different people working in this business, doing all sorts of different kinds of work. And to see the essentially unanimous feeling among all the journalists in this building and all the sort of senior staff and all the producers and everybody in this building about this was one thing. But then to see the executives and the leadership hear that and respond to it and be willing to change course based on their respect for us and hearing what we argued, I have deep respect for that. I mean what I said on the air last night on my show, that I think that acknowledging that you might have gotten something wrong is a real sign of strength, a real show of strength. And I think it's a show of strength, and I think it's a show of respect for the people who work at this company and who make us who we are. That leadership was willing to change on this, and I'm grateful to them. It's not about hiring a Republican. It's not even about hiring somebody who has Trump ties. This was a really specific case because of Ms. McDaniel's and her involvement in the election interference stuff.
Sure. The revolt was network-wide. This confirmed several things about NBC Not News. First, it confirmed they are indeed revolting over there. Secondly, it revealed there are no journalists at NBC Not News, only those who push a left-wing narrative over news. Thirdly, like Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, Letitia James, and all the rest, it showed that the left can't sanction or handle dissent or allow their opponents to defend themselves for their cooked-up accusations.
There's no doubt that the last several days have been difficult for the news group. After listening to the legitimate concerns of many of you, I have decided that Ronna McDaniel will not be an NBC News contributor. He goes on to write that no organization, particularly a newsroom, can succeed unless it is cohesive and aligned. Over the last few days, it has become clear that disappointment undermines that goal. The news chairman continues to say, quote, "I want to personally apologize to our team members who felt we let them down. While this was a collective recommendation by some members of our leadership team, I approved it and take full responsibility for it."
The bosses apologize to the folks who really run that network for subjecting them to the trauma of someone like Ronna McDaniel, someone who may not agree with him on everything, someone who won't carry their narrative over news, their narrative over facts. In so doing, NBC proved that they are no longer in the news business. They are straight up propaganda now, and no differing opinions will be allowed. Just like every dictatorship on planet Earth. It's not very American, but it is very Democrat, and it is very left-wing. And that leads us back to Ronna McDaniel, in the finest tradition of her uncle and all the other pro-Democrat Republicans who have infected the GOP, she teed up a primary cycle that was fundamentally unfair to President Trump. She scheduled debates on notorious never-Trump networks. That is the definition of unfair. But in a slap in the face to conservatives everywhere, she scheduled a GOP debate on a network that has shown and is now showing that it hates Republicans and hates conservatives. So much so that they won't even allow them to speak on their air as paid contributors. That's a privilege reserved for good leftists like Jen Psaki. And now we know that what Ronna got for selling out Trump and conservatives, a gig that lasted 2 days and a Democrat network that did what Democrats always do, stab folks in the back. Was it worth it, Ronna?
Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017. We have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ronna, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing more people into our party. You think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, do you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, Kristen, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years, was that real or was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation? Answer the question. Go. Mr. Ronna, this is how we get our country back. We need accountability because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
and they're going to rig this election.
Your time is up.
Accountability.